Hey everyone, thanks as always for tuning in. We're going to do a video on the WingMan ASA. This is a collaboration with Gustavo Cecchini, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, or GTC Knives. So Gustavo's been around the custom knife scene for a long time, certainly well known as an engineer and an innovator, and he brought to market a really unique mechanism called the spring-loaded tab, and we'll get to that in a second. So this collaboration is with obviously WingMan EDC is the company, GTC Knives. It was produced by Riot Knives in China, and then it does have, of course, the Lee Williams kickstop, which ultimately is kind of the elephant in the room, but we'll talk about that. So let's go over the specs and just kind of share this one with you guys. I noticed it was out of stock at some of their dealers and in stock at some of their other dealers. So if you're looking for this one, go to their website, look at the full dealer list. I think ultimately you'll be able to find one in stock. So ships with obviously branded box, does come with a pouch, of course. And then we have the certificate of authenticity, which is ultimately kind of a dog tag here. And then we have the pivot tool for the proprietary propeller style pivot. That's a lot of P's. So that is what it ships with. Let's move all that out of the way here. I guess just kind of a shout out, there are a few more knife shows coming up towards the end of the year. There's a California Custom Knife Show and Friday Night Blade Affair in California and Long Beach. So if you guys are in California and want to hit up a show, check that out. All right, let's get into the specs. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring out my TNT Mach 3. It's a little dirty, but this is my personal knife from WingMan. So the ASA here is quite a bit larger than some of their other offerings, and here we have the Kershaw Dividend. And we also, of course, have the Para 2 from Spyderco, which is a staple. So pretty close in line with the Dividend here. As far as the specs go, blade length of 3.125. We have a handle length of about 4.4. Overall, just about 7.5 inches. Weighs 4.5 ounces. Now, these are zirconium inlays, so even though this thing is heavily skeletonized, it is still on the heavier side, or perhaps we should say, because they use zirconium inlays, they went to a lot of trouble to skeletonize to keep it well balanced and reduce the weight, but I'll show you guys that in a second. Now, it does use S90V as the steel, which again, incredible edge retention, ceramic bearing, ceramic detent, and of course the remainder of the frame is titanium. So let's move those out of the way. And let's see, ooh, price. These are $475, so not inexpensive by any means, but certainly a premium offering in the production knife space. So let's do a close-up real quick before I go any further. We have some of GTC Knives kind of signature checkering here, file work. I believe it's done by hand. The lock bar is basically mirrored from one side to the other, so integrates beautifully. A lot of great symmetry, 3D milled clip, lanyard hole. There's no sharp edge on this knife aside from the one that should be sharp. Everything has been chamfered really well. There's no hot spots. So again, it's a premium offering. No stainless steel lock insert. It is the steel on titanium contact, but this one has had no stick whatsoever. This is a loaner, but one thing I did do when it came in is I did put a little bit of lube on the detent ball, and that smoothed this out incredibly. The detent ball was a bit dry, and when you have a dry ceramic detent ball, it creates a ton of friction. So, you know, you want to try to get a little bit of lube on the detent ball, but try to keep it off the lock bar. So again, just food for thought with this knife or any knife really. So again, a lot of nice detail work. All right. Let's talk about the opening mechanism, because again, this is the Lee Williams kickstop, and so as you use the flipper tab and open the knife, the flipper tab disappears because it pivots. It's a separate piece here that essentially pivots around the pivot. Hence it's called a pivot. So it's a really cool mechanism, and of course, you know, WingMan EDC licensed that specific mechanism from Lee Williams for their production knives, and it's one of the things that really attracts me to WingMan EDC is their ability to use that proprietary opening mechanism. Now, Gus GTC has his own unique mechanism called the spring-loaded tab. So we're going to bring out the ZT0055, and this is essentially the spring-loaded tab. So it has a spring that keeps it in the down position, so when the knife is open, it lays flat against the bottom, and again, that spring keeps it tucked away. So it's a different take, but it tries to solve the same problem, which is that, you know, perhaps flipper tabs are either unattractive or potentially a nuisance in the open position. We could argue that in some instances they serve as a forward guard, but for the sake of solving that some people don't like flipper tabs, these systems exist. So two different takes. Again, this is a GTC design as well, based on his model, the Airborne, and this is likely based on a custom called the ASA. To be honest, I haven't really seen that one. I'm sure it's around. Gus has a lot of designs, and he's the type of person that almost every build he does is somehow different from every other build that he's done. So you may have two knives that are both Airbornes and they look, you know, very different. So anyways, so that's, you know, again, kind of the elephant in the room, that Gus has his own unique mechanism, but obviously they can't use it because they have licensed the kickstop and they did not license the spring-loaded tab. In fact, the spring-loaded tab could potentially be on you know, locked down by Kai USA or ZT. That I do not know. I didn't reach out to Gus before the video and really get into the nuances. It really, I guess, it's a fun info, but it doesn't really matter, I guess, all that much. But again, both really cool mechanisms. This isn't exactly like his mechanism either. He doesn't have kind of the rounded tab here. It's just a flat bar, and it always has his signature file work here. So, all right. Now that we talked about that, let's get back to this one. I need to show you guys the skeletonizing here internally, because again, there was a lot done. You guys can see that they put a lot of time into lightening this knife as much as possible. A lot of nice contouring here on the handle. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's concaved right here. Again, every edge. Let's look at the inlay work on this Zerk. It's honestly incredible. I think at this point that's really no surprise from Riot Knives. Kind of have a see-through here for the blade. Ooh, and then thickness behind the edge. Let's talk about that because I did measure that. So obviously compound grind. The front here is a flat grind. No, it's a hollow grind, and it comes down behind the edge to about 17 thousandths. And then back here we have a flat grind, and that comes down to about 25 thousandths behind the edge. So again, just for frame of reference, the entire edge of a pair 2 is about 25 thousandths from the factory. So back here is thick as a pair 2, up here it's even thinner. I'm kind of indifferent towards compound grinds. If you are going to do it, this is the right way to do it, because again, ultimately most of the cutting that you're going to do with a knife in this price range and this size and that sort of thing is going to be towards the tip, and it's going to be packages and boxes and thread and perhaps opening food items and stuff like that. So I think ultimately you're going to want to have a thinner edge here towards the tip, and that's how, I mean, most of my cutting happens really on the first half of probably every blade that I own. So anyhow, that food for thought. I think it's a good way to do it. Action, really nice. Has a really mechanical sound and feel to it because of the kickstop mechanism. Let's talk about the grip here for a second. So it is, you know, very contoured. We have a couple different grip areas here, and we have a protrusion right in the middle. So, you know, again, with most knives, if you have a neutral grip, it's going to allow for a lot of different hand sizes to work. With mine, it works just fine. Even though my middle finger would kind of rest on that protrusion, everything has been rounded and contoured nicely. So to be honest, it's not uncomfortable. Now again, your mileage may vary, but I think that this would work for most people. There might be a specific hand size where it doesn't. You can obviously choke up a little bit further, closer to the edge here, but everything has been really well contoured. There's some lock bar relief milling here, and again, really smooth. Again, just lube the detent ball up and you should be fine. The Zerk is a nice feature. So, and there is kind of an interesting cutout right here. I mean, it's unnecessary. The blade doesn't come anywhere near it, but it's kind of a nice visual element. There's a lot of nice visual elements that you'll find on GTC Custom. So centering's good, lockup is really solid, really no issues there. So like all the WingMan knives, I mean, they're beautifully made knives. They're premium price, premium materials, you know, premium well built or very well built, and they just do some interesting things. So here's another really cool one. It is one of, again, the larger ones kind of in the WingMan lineup. They tend to keep fairly small knives overall, but it's one to potentially check out. I just think it's one of the more unique or interesting knives out there in the production space because of the makers they're able to collaborate with, the kickstop mechanism for sure, and then the build quality that they put out. So I'm still hoping that we see some in maybe the 3.5-inch range. You know, 3.5-inch bladed knives, and obviously, you know, subsequently larger, you know, overall probably 8-inch knives. But we shall see when and if those come. But hopefully you guys enjoyed taking a look at this one before it goes back. It's been fun to check out and fun to sit on my desk and certainly flip on calls and stuff. And let me know what other videos you guys are potentially wanting to see, if there are any specific topics that you want me to try to cover. If I'm going to make videos, I hope that they're somewhat interesting, entertaining, or useful for you guys. So let me know if I'm not hitting any of those metrics for you. Thanks as always for watching. You can follow me on Instagram for more frequent content. I won't quite call it daily these days, but as always, appreciate you watching. Take care.